George Raft. Our first actor is George Raft. George Raft was a famous actor known for his roles in gangster movies. He had a tough look and often played the role of a smooth, cool guy who knew the rules of the streets. His style made him a perfect fit for movies about gangsters and underworld life. People say that George Raft was not only a great actor, but also knew many people from the real underworld. It is rumored that he spent time with gangsters, and his friendly smile might have been hiding secrets. George was known to have spent time with real-life criminals. In many stories, he is seen at parties and gatherings where important mob figures were present. Because of his on-screen roles, some people believe that he was also part of that secret world. Even if he was just acting, his image made others think he really belonged to the underworld. When movie studios needed extra money, some groups from the underworld helped out. George Raft was said to be friendly with some of these groups. His charm and his cool looks may have helped him make connections with people who lived by different rules than most. Frank Sinatra. Next, we meet Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra was a very talented man. He sang songs that many people loved and also acted in movies. His voice and his charm made him a superstar. But along with his fame came rumors about his private life. Many people have said that Frank Sinatra had connections with the mob. It is said that Frank knew some very important people in the underworld. His charm and his style made him a friend to many who lived secret lives. On the stage and screen, Frank was full of energy and life. Off the stage, some stories suggest that he might have met with men who did not always follow the law. Some stories tell us that Frank's close friends in the underworld helped him get some roles in movies or even helped him when he needed extra money. Frank was also a part of a group of entertainers known as the Rat Pack. Some say that many members of this group were friendly with underworld figures. This did not mean they were bad, but it did create a mix of legends and rumors about their true lives. Josh Brolin. Take Josh Brolin, for instance. Before he became famous for playing villains like Thanos or corrupt cops in films like American Gangster, young Josh was part of a surfer gang known as the Ceto Rats. In interviews, he has been quite open about his troubled teenage years, sharing that he was involved in some pretty shady activities. Back then, he wasn't just surfing the waves, he was also getting into trouble by stealing car radios to feed a growing drug habit. It's hard to imagine now, but those early days were filled with risks and reckless decisions that could have changed his life forever. He even had a brush with heroin, a dangerous path that almost derailed his future. The consequences of that turbulent period were severe. He lost nearly 19 friends who were caught up in the same rough lifestyle, a heartbreaking toll that underscored the perils of that world. His encounters with the law were frequent enough that he eventually found himself behind bars, facing a reality that was worlds apart from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Yet despite all of that, Josh managed to turn his life around. His journey from those difficult beginnings to becoming a celebrated actor is a testament to his resilience and ability to overcome adversity, making his rise to stardom all the more remarkable. Robert Darrow. Now, look at Robert Darrow. Known for his iconic roles in gangster films like The Godfather, Darrow wasn't just a talented actor, he also had a past that mirrored the gritty worlds he portrayed on screen. As a teenager, he found himself deeply immersed in the rougher side of life. Unlike many who only read about such experiences, Darrow lived them firsthand. He spent time on the streets, and his early years were marked by encounters with real gangsters. In fact, he even hung out with members of the Gambino crime family, absorbing their attitudes, mannerisms, and the unspoken codes that governed their world. This exposure wasn't something he could easily forget. It became a part of who he was, influencing his personality and his acting style. That raw, real-life experience gave him an authenticity that set him apart from other actors. When he later stepped into dramatic roles, his performance carried the weight of genuine understanding, making his characters feel all the more real. Even when he took on lighter, more comedic roles, there was an undeniable depth that hinted at the hard-edged lessons of his past. His ability to switch between hard-hitting drama and unexpected humor not only showcased his versatility, but also cemented his reputation as an actor whose life experiences enriched every character he portrayed. Dean Martin. Our next actor is Dean Martin, another star from the golden era. Dean Martin was known for his smooth voice, cool style, and big smile. He sang, acted, and made people laugh. As part of the Rat Pack, he was one of the most loved entertainers of his time. Just like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin was also rumored to have connections with people from the underworld. The Rat Pack was a group of entertainers who were very popular. Because they often hung out together, rumors started that they all had some connections with secret and dangerous people. Some people say that Dean Martin met and became friends with mob bosses and other underworld figures. His charm and easygoing nature made him popular with many different kinds of people. There are stories that say Dean's friends in the underworld might have helped him get work or protect him when trouble came near. On stage and in films, Dean always looked relaxed and confident. Some believe that this calm attitude came from a life that had seen both bright lights and hidden shadows. Peter Lawford. Peter Lawford was a British-born actor who became a big star in Hollywood. He was known for his charm, good looks, and the smooth way he acted on screen. Peter was part of the Rat Pack too, which made him a very famous face in the movie world. Many stories and old articles have linked Peter Lawford to the underworld. It is said that Peter Lawford was not only popular on the screen, but also off the screen. He was friends with some very powerful and secretive people. Because he was part of the Rat Pack, his name often came up in discussions about secret friendships with mob figures. Some believe that these secret ties even helped him get important roles in movies. Peter's family and friends sometimes had connections with powerful groups. This helped add to the rumors that Peter was connected to the underworld. On the red carpet, Peter looked like a true gentleman. But behind closed doors, there were whispers of secret meetings and quiet deals. These stories made him one of the most mysterious figures of his time. Edward G. Robinson. Edward G. Robinson's on-screen persona as a hard-nosed, no-nonsense gangster wasn't merely the result of his acting talent. It was also deeply intertwined with enduring rumors and anecdotes of real-life underworld connections. Numerous memoirs and reports from his contemporaries hint that Robinson's tough exterior might have been influenced by personal encounters with mob figures during his early years in New York. For example, in his biography, Edward G. Robinson, a critical biography by Gene Fowler, there are references to whispered conversations in smoky backrooms where Robinson's name was mentioned among notorious criminals, lending an air of authenticity to his portrayals. Film historians, such as those quoted in Hollywood and the Mob by Tino Ballio, suggest that Robinson's frequent visits to urban neighborhoods where crime was rife may have provided him with insights into the behavior and mannerisms of real mobsters. This exposure reportedly helped him perfect the commanding presence seen in films like Little Caesar and Key Largo. Reported sightings in old New York newspapers, including the New York Times archives, recall instances where Robinson was seen in the company of figures suspected of mob affiliations, though these reports remain largely anecdotal and unverified. Furthermore, interviews with industry insiders in documentaries like Gangsters and Goodfellas often mention that Robinson's natural charisma and intimidating demeanor blurred the lines between his art and reality. While Robinson himself consistently downplayed any real involvement with organized crime, the persistence of these rumors has only deepened the mystique surrounding his legendary career, contributing to an enduring legacy that merges cinematic brilliance with the enigmatic allure of the underworld. Robert Mitchum. You know, Robert Mitchum was one of those actors who seemed to live in both worlds, the world of film and the world of reality. Folks always say his rugged looks and cool, calm style weren't just for the movies. When you saw him on screen, you could almost believe he'd stepped out of a real-life gangster flick. There were whispers that he'd been spotted with some pretty unsavory characters, and these stories made people wonder if his cool demeanor was more than just acting. Picture this: Mitchum, with that laid-back, dangerous charm, casually hanging around in smoky bars or dimly lit back rooms, chatting with folks who weren't exactly known for their clean records. It's like his off-screen life was a mirror of the characters he played. Many times people would say, "Hey, isn't that Mitchum?" when he was seen in the company of people who might have had a few secrets of their own. Now, I'm not saying he was a mobster or anything like that. No, he always maintained that he was just a guy who knew how to keep his cool. But these rumors kept swirling around him, adding an extra layer of mystery that only made him more fascinating. Fans loved him for his effortless coolness and the way he made even the toughest characters seem real. And even though Mitchum himself would laugh off those stories, the idea that he might have had a little brush with the darker side of life stuck with people, helping to cement his legendary status both on and off the screen. James Cagney. James Cagney, known for his rapid-fire dialogue and tough guy roles, wasn't just an actor playing gangsters on screen. There have been many stories and rumors suggesting that his life off camera was just as gritty and real. Growing up in the tough neighborhoods of New York City, Cagney's early experiences often brought him close to the rough side of life. Many who have studied his life, including reporters and fellow actors who later wrote memoirs, say that Cagney had a natural understanding of the world of street hustlers and mobsters. Over the years, various anecdotes have emerged about Cagney's supposed encounters with members of the Underworld. Some old newspaper reports and personal memoirs from people who worked with him claim that he was seen in dimly lit bars and smoky backrooms where real gangsters would gather. In these settings, he was said to have mixed with men who had reputations that matched the tough characters he portrayed in his films. One popular story tells of a night when Cagney was spotted at a local club known to be a hangout for mobsters, chatting casually as if he were one of them. While some believe this was merely a case of an actor being in the wrong place at the right time, others insist that his presence among these shadowy figures was no accident. Another recurring rumor is that Cagney's famous style, the way he delivered his lines with a quick, sharp accent and an unyielding swagger, was not only an act for the camera, but also a reflection of his real-life interactions. Friends and colleagues have recalled how he would sometimes laugh about the similarities between his on-screen persona and the tough characters he encountered in his youth. In interviews, Cagney often downplayed these stories, insisting that he was simply an actor who understood the material. Yet, the consistency of these accounts over decades has given the tales a life of their own. Reporters have noted that his natural charisma and authentic delivery made it hard to tell where acting ended and real life began. Memoirs written by some of his contemporaries provide even more colorful details. One well-known memoir by a fellow actor mentioned that during the early days of his career, Cagney had once shared a table with a notorious local mob boss at a small diner in Brooklyn. The boss, impressed by Cagney's straightforward manner and keen observations of street life, reportedly offered him advice about surviving in a harsh world, a world where loyalty and quick wit were as important as talent. Although this story has never been officially confirmed, it is one of many that paint a picture of a man who was as comfortable in the gritty underbelly of urban life as he was under the bright lights of Hollywood. In another anecdote, a former crew member recalled how Cagney, even while on set, would sometimes mention knowing people who weren't the kind you'd expect in the world of movies. He would speak of old friends from the neighborhoods of New York, friends who had once been involved in activities that most people would shy away from discussing openly. These conversations were brief and often wrapped in humor, but they hinted at a past where Cagney had seen and perhaps even participated in life far removed from the glamour of the silver screen. Lenny Montana. Lenny Montana's life story is even more fascinating when you dig into the details. Before he ever stepped into the shoes of Luca Brasi in The Godfather, Montana was a real-life mob enforcer for the Colombo crime family. Imagine that. A man who once enforced the strict, unspoken rules of the mob now playing one of the most iconic hitmen in cinema history. His day-to-day life involved dealing with real danger and making tough choices, far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. Montana didn't just learn about loyalty and toughness from a script or a classroom, he lived it. Every encounter in the gritty world of organized crime taught him lessons that no actor could simply study or rehearse. This real-world experience seeped into his work on screen, adding a whole new layer to his portrayal of Luca Brasi. His rugged authenticity shone through every line he delivered, making his performance feel raw and genuine. You can almost sense the weight of his past in the way he carried himself, as if each gesture and word was deeply rooted in the hard reality of life in the underbelly of organized crime. His background gave him an edge, a natural understanding of power, respect, and fear that no amount of acting school could ever teach. Lenny Montana's transition from a feared mob enforcer to an unforgettable cinematic character is a testament to the undeniable connection between his real-life experiences and the iconic roles he brought to life on the big screen. James Caan. Then there's James Caan, who became widely known for his role as Sonny Corleone. Caan's connection to the world of the mob wasn't limited to the screen at all. In fact, his life off camera was deeply intertwined with that secretive realm. Over decades, Caan built an enduring friendship with a key figure in the Colombo crime family, a bond that went far beyond the typical professional relationships in Hollywood. This was a relationship rooted in trust, shared hardships, and mutual respect, developed over years of real-life encounters. In one memorable instance, Caan demonstrated the depth of his loyalty when his friend faced legal trouble. He vouched so strongly for him that he was willing to put up anything to secure his bail. Such a gesture wasn't merely an act of friendship. It was a profound testament to the deep personal ties he had formed within the mob's inner circle. Caan's life story shows that he wasn't just an actor portraying a character. He had genuine connections that lent an undeniable air of credibility and raw authenticity to his persona. These lived experiences gave him a unique perspective on loyalty, power, and the complexities of life in the underworld, qualities that seamlessly translated into his on-screen performances. Together with the story of Lenny Montana, James Caan's journey reminds us that some of the most compelling characters in film come from real-life backstories that are as fascinating and intricate as the roles they play. Tony Darrow. Tony Darrow's story is a raw, unfiltered glimpse into a world where organized crime wasn't just an urban myth, it was a way of life. Born into a Brooklyn family steeped in mob influence, Darrow's early years were immersed in the harsh realities of the underworld. In his neighborhood, loyalty was paramount, and street justice was meted out without mercy. This environment wasn't merely a backdrop, it was a defining force that shaped his character and outlook on life. From a young age, Darrow was exposed to the codes and consequences of the mob, learning firsthand that every action had a price. His deep connections with Brooklyn's criminal circles led him down a path that, at times, brought him into direct conflict with the law. In fact, his involvement in these illicit activities eventually resulted in a prison sentence for racketeering, a stark reminder that the underworld's rewards came with steep risks. This brush with the law wasn't just a temporary setback, it left an indelible mark on him, forging an authenticity that would later shine through in his acting. When Tony Darrow eventually stepped in front of the camera, he brought with him not only his undeniable talent, but also a wealth of real-life experience. Every role he played carried the weight of a life lived on the edge, making his portrayals resonate with gritty realism. Audiences could sense that his characters were more than just scripted figures. They were embodiments of a harsh reality he had known intimately. Tony Darrow's journey from Brooklyn's dark streets to the silver screen is a testament to the enduring influence of his underworld roots. Tony Sirico. Tony Sirico's tale is just as riveting, if not more so. Not only did he make memorable appearances in iconic classics like The Sopranos and The Godfather Part 2, but his real-life record was nothing short of legendary, boasting 28 arrests and multiple convictions. Imagine an actor whose past reads like a crime thriller. Sirico wasn't merely an actor portraying mobsters on screen. He had lived through a turbulent existence in the criminal world, and every chapter of his history added a raw, unfiltered layer to his performances. Growing up in the tough neighborhoods of Brooklyn, Tony Sirico was no stranger to brushes with the law. His life was punctuated by run-ins with the authorities, and each arrest, each conviction, added to the authentic aura he carried. This wasn't a story of an actor dabbling in roles. It was a story of someone who truly lived on the edge. His experiences in the underworld gave him a gravitas and authenticity that few can match. When Sirico stepped into his roles, it was as if he was channeling years of real-life experiences, turning his personal history into a kind of acting method that brought undeniable truth to his characters. In every performance, whether he was delivering a subtle glance or an explosive outburst, you could sense that Tony Sirico wasn't just playing a part. He was reliving parts of his own life. His journey from a turbulent past to iconic roles on the screen remains a compelling example of how life's harsh realities can shape, and even enhance, a truly unforgettable career in Hollywood. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando remains one of the most influential actors in cinema history, largely because of his groundbreaking work in portraying complex characters. His role as Vito Corleone in The Godfather is legendary, so much so that many viewers felt they were watching a real-life mob boss come to life on the screen. Brando's early life in Omaha, marked by a rebellious spirit and a willingness to challenge the status quo, may have given him a unique insight into power, survival, and the human condition, qualities that are deeply intertwined with the world of organized crime. He approached his portrayal of Vito Corleone with such authenticity that audiences couldn't help but wonder if his performance was informed by real-life encounters with mobsters. In interviews and biographies, such as Marlon Brando, the biography by Peter Manso, it's noted that Brando went to great lengths to research his roles, sometimes even consulting with individuals who had first-hand experience with the mob. Though Brando himself never claimed any direct involvement with underworld figures, his portrayal blurred the line between fiction and reality. His ability to capture both the warmth and ruthlessness of a mob leader has left an indelible mark on popular culture, inspiring countless portrayals of mobsters and keeping the mystique of the underworld alive in the hearts and minds of audiences everywhere. Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci is one of those actors who really feels like he's lived every bit of the tough world he portrays on screen. You know him best for his explosive, unforgettable roles in movies like Goodfellas and Casino, where he brings a raw intensity to the character of a mobster. But what's really interesting is that Joe's own background played a big part in making his performances so authentic. Growing up in neighborhoods steeped in mafia culture, he was surrounded by the kind of stories and experiences that most actors only read about in books. That rough upbringing helped him understand the language, the mannerisms, and the vibe of the criminal world. People often say that Joe Pesci doesn't just act like a mobster. He's like he's been one, because of the real-life influence of his early environment. His explosive energy, his timing, and even his unique sense of humor all come through in his performances, making his characters feel incredibly genuine. And it's not just the intense moments. Even in scenes that mix drama with a bit of dark comedy, you can see that lived-in quality in his work. Over the years, Joe's reputation has grown not just because of the iconic films he's been in, but also because of that undeniable connection to the underworld he brings to every role. It's like he's channeling the very spirit of the streets, and that's what makes his portrayal of mobsters so compelling and unforgettable. Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg is one of those actors whose early life was as wild as some of the movies he stars in. Back in his teenage years, Mark wasn't the Hollywood star we know today. He was a kid caught up in a life that many would consider dangerous. Growing up, he thought school was a waste of time and ended up joining a gang, which quickly got him into all kinds of trouble. He got involved in activities that led to numerous charges and even struggled with drug use, including cocaine. In fact, there was a time when his behavior turned violent, a rough incident where he attacked 2 Vietnamese men, leaving one with severe injuries. It wasn't just about the trouble with the law. It was about a young man trying to find his place in a world that didn't offer many good choices. But life had more in store for him. After these tumultuous years, Mark's older brother, Donnie, stepped in to help him make a change. Mark got a fresh start in the music industry, becoming known as Marky Mark, and even had a hit with Good Vibrations. That experience paved the way for him to eventually transition into acting and build a solid career in Hollywood. Mark Wahlberg's early brush with gang life and the underworld has become a part of his story, a story of transformation. His past adds a layer of depth to his tough guy roles on screen, making his performances feel real and grounded in a life once lived on the edge. John Roselli. John, Handsome Johnny. Roselli wasn't just a name whispered around mob circles. He may have played a significant role in the life of one of Hollywood's most iconic stars, Marilyn Monroe. You see, according to various accounts, Roselli was introduced to Monroe by producer Joseph Schenck, a man with a notorious past of his own. In interviews, notably with author Lee Server, it's been revealed that Roselli and Monroe were once close for a while lovers, according to some. Rumor even has it that Roselli helped secure Monroe's first prominent part in Ladies of the Chorus at Columbia, potentially jump-starting her budding career. But the story doesn't end there. Monroe's entanglement with the underworld seemed to follow her throughout her life. In a chilling twist, recordings discovered by her hair and makeup stylist George Masters claim that Monroe spent her last night alive at Frank Sinatra's lodge in the company of a mafia boss. Adding another layer to this labyrinth of intrigue, Monroe was said to be in love with the infamous Sam Giancana. Legend has it that Giancana even tried to persuade her not to reveal an alleged affair with President John F. Kennedy during a fateful stay at the Cal Neva Lodge in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. The drama culminated when Monroe reportedly flew home to Los Angeles early the next morning and was found dead that same night. These overlapping tales of love, loyalty, and tragic destiny illustrate the enduring, mysterious connection between Hollywood's glamour and its darker underbelly. Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds may not be a name that you expect to see on a list of stars who have been connected to mafia figures, but it turns out that the actress got caught up with the mob on more than one occasion, for better or worse. We have to head back to 1960 to pinpoint the iconic starlet's connection to the mob, which is when mafia attorney Sidney Korshak acquired his Bel Air home via a deed that was granted to Korshak from Carl's Shoe Stores Limited, according to Vanity Fair. If you're wondering what that has to do with Debbie Reynolds, well, she was married to Carl of Carl's Shoe Stores. Korshak was also partially responsible for making Reynolds a wealthy woman, reportedly negotiating $1 million deal for her Las Vegas debut. According to the FBI, he was even present at the opening performance of the Debbie Reynolds show at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, in January 1963. However, Reynolds' interactions with mafia types weren't always so beneficial. During the mid-60s, her company, Harmony Productions, got involved with the maker of something called a Scopatone jukebox. But by 1966, NPR explains that just as big artists like Johnny Mathis and Roger Miller were starting to sign on, key Scopatone players were charged with having ties to the mafia, which meant that sales stalled and the venture failed, which likely lost Reynolds a pretty penny. Liza Minnelli. You know, Liza Minnelli, who lit up the screen as the fearless Sally Bowles in Cabaret, was just as adventurous off-camera as she was on. Rumor has it that she wasn't afraid to dive into some pretty wild situations, even if that meant rubbing shoulders with figures from the underworld. According to the New York Post, she was once friends with Gianni Russo, a mobster with deep connections to the infamous mob boss Frank Costello. Now, Russo wasn't your everyday character. He moved in circles with legends like Elvis Presley, who, as the story goes, once mimicked on-screen pistol play with real guns, Zsa Zsa Gabor, with whom he had a weird date, and even Frank Sinatra, with a recollection so wild that Russo claimed, "He tried to slap me. I grabbed his skinny wrist and said, 'I'll rip off your arm and shove it up your fucking ass.'" But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Russo wasn't just talking about casual hangouts. He claimed that his life, part Scorsese feature, part wild adventure, sometimes even turned into scenes straight out of a risque skin flick. One such escapade allegedly involved Minnelli herself. According to Russo, after both he and Liza took a liking to the same Vegas showgirl, they ended up having a threesome, an episode that, as they say, didn't stay in Vegas. It's a fascinating glimpse into a world where Hollywood glamour meets the rough-and-tumble underworld, and it shows just how daring and unfiltered Liza Minnelli's life really was.